What if the most powerful fat-burning moment of your entire day begins before you ever touch your food? There is something remarkable happening inside you while you sleep. Your body, deprived of incoming energy for 7 or 8 hours, quietly shifts its entire metabolic strategy. Insulin, the hormone that normally signals your cells to store energy, falls to its lowest levels of the day. And in that quiet biochemical space, that is where the first morning hack begins to matter. The first thing I tried was simply this: extending the fast by delaying breakfast by just 1 hour. Not skipping it, delaying it. Because what research has revealed over the past 2 decades is that the body's fat oxidation rate, meaning how actively it is pulling energy from stored fat, peaks during this fasted morning window. Your liver is in a state of glycogen depletion. Your blood glucose is low, stable, and clean. Your mitochondria, those ancient organelles inside every cell, are primed for fat as fuel. What surprised me wasn't the science. The science was already there. What surprised me was how differently the morning felt when I stopped rushing toward food. There was a kind of quiet alertness, a sharpness that I hadn't associated with hunger, but with something more like clarity. And that, I later understood, was related to the mild rise in norepinephrine that occurs in a fasted state, a signal that tells the body, mobilize, move, access your reserves. But the fasted window alone is only one piece, because what you do inside that window changes everything about how your body responds. The second hack I tried was cold water, specifically a brief cold exposure in the morning, lasting around 2 to 3 minutes. I want to be precise here, because the word hack can feel trivial, and what cold does to the human body is anything but trivial. When your skin is exposed to cold, your nervous system responds with a rapid and ancient alarm. Norepinephrine surges, not just locally, but systemically. This molecule does something fascinating. It binds to receptors on adipocytes, the cells where fat is stored, and initiates a process called lipolysis, the breaking down of stored triglycerides into free fatty acids. These fatty acids then enter the bloodstream, ready to be oxidized for energy. This is not metaphor. This is biochemistry. But there is something else happening that I found even more philosophically interesting. A brown adipose tissue, the metabolically active fat that generates heat, is activated by cold. Most adults have small depots of it around the neck, the collarbone, and along the spine. And when activated, brown fat does not store energy. It burns it. It is one of the rare tissues in the human body whose entire purpose is thermogenesis, the generation of warmth through combustion. What struck me most was the contrast. Standing in cold water, I felt more awake, more alive, and strangely, more at peace. The body, under mild thermal stress, releases a quiet cascade of chemistry that has been conserved across millions of years of evolution. Now, if the cold was the thermal key, the third hack turned out to be the one that changed how I understood movement itself. The third morning practice I explored was movement. Not intense exercise, but deliberate low-intensity movement in the fasted state. A walk, 20 to 30 minutes, ideally in natural light, before the first meal of the day. The physiology here is layered. When you walk in a fasted state, your muscle cells are operating with low glycogen availability, and in that condition, they preferentially draw on fatty acids for energy, the very fatty acids that the overnight fast and the cold exposure had begun to mobilize. It is as though the body has been quietly preparing a fire, and the walk is the moment you finally light it. Sunlight adds another dimension. Morning light, specifically the spectrum of light in the early hours, entrains the circadian clock through the retinohypothalamic tract and a pathway linking the eye to the brain's master timekeeper in the suprachiasmatic nucleus. When this clock is properly set, cortisol follows its natural morning peak, which is necessary not just for alertness, but for the mobilization of energy stores. There is a reason the body is designed to be most metabolically active in the first half of the day. What I noticed more than anything was that the walk changed my relationship to the morning. Instead of reaching for stimulation, for coffee, for screens, I was reaching for the simplest, most ancient act of being a body in motion under open sky. 3 practices. 1 morning. But what made them work wasn't just what each one did alone. It was the order in which they spoke to the body. Here is something that rarely gets discussed. Biology is not a set of switches. It is a conversation. And like any conversation, sequence matters enormously. When these 3 practices are layered in order, fasted waking, followed by cold exposure, followed by movement, each one deepens the effect of the next. The overnight fast lowers insulin and begins fatty acid mobilization. The cold exposure amplifies norepinephrine and activates thermogenic tissue. The walk then provides the muscular demand that draws upon exactly the kind of fuel that the previous 2 practices have made available. It is a cascade, a biological sentence that reads fluently only in one direction. I think about this often when I reflect on why so many wellness approaches feel fragmented. We reach for individual solutions in isolation, a supplement, a single habit, like a shortcut, without understanding that the body operates as a system of interacting signals. Insulin speaks to the fat cell speaks to the mitochondria speak to the muscle, and all of this is happening in real time, every morning, whether we are paying attention or not. What these practices did, more than anything, was help me begin paying attention. Not obsessively, not with anxiety about optimization, but with the quiet curiosity of someone who has realized that the body is not a machine to be driven. It is a living system to be listened to. And what happens when you listen to it consistently, day after day, is where the most surprising discovery of all was waiting. There is a word that appears rarely in conversations about fat loss, and that word is patience. Not because results take forever. They don't. Not when the biology is working in your favor. But because the most profound changes that happen in the body occur at a level that precedes what the mirror shows. What changes first is cellular. Mitochondrial density increases. Your cells literally build more of the structures that burn fat. Insulin sensitivity improves. Your cells become more responsive to the hormone that governs whether energy gets stored or released. The hormonal environment of the morning shifts in a direction that supports leanness, clarity, and stable energy across the entire day. None of this was dramatic. None of it happened overnight, despite the word instantly that I've used, and I want to be honest about that word. What burns instantly is not fat in the literal sense. What ignites instantly is the metabolic signal. The cascade begins quickly, but the body, in its wisdom, changes gradually. And that gradualness is not a flaw. It is a feature. It is evidence that the body trusts only what is consistent, only what is repeated, only what feels like a genuine new pattern rather than a temporary experiment. I came away from these 3 months with something more valuable than a leaner body. I came away with a different kind of relationship to my own biology. One built on curiosity rather than control, on rhythm rather than restriction. And perhaps that is the most honest thing I can say about morning hacks. The best ones are not tricks. They are invitations. Invitations to work with your body rather than against it. To understand that every morning, your biology is ready to reset, and all you have to do is show up for it. The question was never really about burning fat. It was about learning to trust the intelligence that's been running your body long before you ever thought to intervene.